Everyone in our little Texas town called it the wedding of the decade. Lena, our beloved local baker, was finally marrying Evan, her high school sweetheart, and the golden boy everyone adored. But just 3 weeks before the big day, while folding laundry, she stumbled upon a hotel receipt under Evan's name, addressed to her maid of honor. She froze. Her hands were shaking. What the hell was going on behind her back? She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She started planning not a wedding, but something far more unforgettable. Lena Garcia had flour in her hair and frosting on her cheek when Evan first kissed her behind the bakery. They were 16. She had just started helping her abuela run the family shop, and he'd wandered in with a football jersey and a crooked smile asking for anything sweet. She handed him a churro. He handed her his heart, or so she thought. 10 years later, nothing had changed. Lena was now the proud owner of that same bakery, Sugar and Grace, a warm little spot with pastel walls and the smell of cinnamon rolls that hugged you the moment you stepped inside. Locals came, not just for her desserts, but for her smile, her kindness, and the way she remembered everyone's name. She'd inherited more than recipes from her grandmother. She'd inherited heart and Evan. Well, Evan was still charming, still handsome, still walking through town like he owned it. He'd built a name for himself as a personal trainer and was in the middle of launching his own boutique gym downtown. People called them the perfect couple. She was sweet. He was strong. She wore aprons, he wore Under Armour, and together they made the kind of love story folks in small towns never got tired of repeating. Everyone loved Evan. Her parents, her siblings, even her regular customers. But no one loved him more fiercely or blindly than Lena. And then there was Bridget. Bridget was Lena's best friend since 7th grade. They shared everything. Secrets, sleepovers, heartbreaks, and dreams. When Lena got her first job at the bakery, Bridget was the one who encouraged her. When Bridget needed help covering rent during college, Lena helped without blinking. They had been through it all: graduations, bad breakups, family drama, you name it. When Evan proposed, Bridget cried even harder than Lena did. And when the wedding planning began, Bridget didn't hesitate to volunteer as maid of honor. It was supposed to be perfect. They were 3 weeks out from the big day. Invitations had been sent. The venue was set, a rustic barn with fairy lights and wildflowers. Lena had spent countless nights designing her own wedding cake, sketching dresses, picking out songs that meant something. Their first dance would be to Stand By Me. It felt symbolic, safe, like everything in her life had led her here. But beneath the excitement, something felt off. Evan had been distant lately, not in a dramatic way. No slammed doors or fights, but subtle. He was texting more during dinner, claiming he had early meetings that didn't line up with his usual schedule. Lena chalked it up to pre-wedding nerves. Everyone got cold feet right. Still, the doubt lingered like smoke in her chest. Then came the receipt. It was a Saturday morning. Lena was folding Evan's laundry at his apartment, humming along to the radio, when a crumpled piece of paper fell from the pocket of his gym shorts. It was a hotel receipt, 2 nights at the La Paloma Inn, paid for in cash. The guest name, Bridget Chambers. Lena stared at it for a long time. Her mouth went dry. Her fingers trembled. Her world tilted just a little. She wanted to believe there was some explanation. Maybe Bridget had needed a quiet place to crash. Maybe Evan had helped her out like friends do. But the timing, the secrecy, it didn't sit right. And more than that, it felt like betrayal. Deep, gut-level betrayal. Lena didn't confront him that day. She tucked the receipt into her pocket, smiled when Evan walked through the door, and kissed him on the cheek, like nothing had happened. because Lena had learned something important from a decade of baking. The best things take time, and revenge, well, that she'd make from scratch. For the next few days, Lena played the part of the blushing bride-to-be. She answered questions about flower arrangements, smiled at bridal gown fittings, and sampled wines with her mother like nothing was wrong. But inside, something had shifted. She was no longer walking toward a dream, she was tiptoeing through a minefield. The hotel receipt never left her purse. She couldn't talk to anyone about it, not yet, especially not her family. Her mom had gone all in on the wedding, calling it the most important day of our lives. And Bridget was still texting her daily about centerpieces and playlist options as if she hadn't possibly spent a weekend in bed with the groom. So Lena waited. She watched. And she started noticing things, small details that hadn't stood out before. One evening, she stopped by Evan's apartment unannounced. He opened the door shirtless and flustered, claiming he had just gotten out of the shower. But there was a lipstick stain on the rim of a wine glass in the sink, and Lena never wore that shade. Another time, Bridget canceled their dress fitting with a vague something came up. Later that day, Lena saw her at the park in Evan's hoodie, the same hoodie he swore he'd lost weeks ago. Each clue felt like a pinprick to the chest. And yet Lena didn't break. Instead, she got smarter. She started backing up her texts, saving screenshots logging Evan's schedule in a small notebook disguised as a wedding planner. She even created a fake email address to reach out to the hotel manager pretending to be a guest, confirming her own booking. The reply she got chilled her to the bone. Yes, Bridget Chambers had stayed there 2 weekends ago. Yes, the reservation had been made by Evan Hawthorne. Yes, they had requested a room with a king bed and privacy. The evidence was undeniable. Lena spent an entire night crying into a pillow, not from heartbreak, but from humiliation. All this time, she had been baking their wedding cake by hand, each tear a labor of love, while her fiancé and best friend were carving knives into her back. But even then, she didn't cancel the wedding. She knew people expected her to collapse, to rage, to scream at Evan and throw the ring in his face. But that wasn't her style. Lena wasn't a hurricane. She was an earthquake, silent, slow, and when she moved, she took down everything. By the second week, she had collected enough to know the affair wasn't new. It hadn't been a fling or a drunken mistake. It was deliberate, sustained, rehearsed. She found an old photo of the three of them at the county fair, her Evan and Bridget laughing over cotton candy. It had always been a cherished memory, but now, when she looked closer, she saw it. The glance Bridget gave Evan when she thought no one was watching. The way he stood just a little closer to her than to Lena. It had been happening right under her nose. And worse, there was money involved. While sorting through old wedding budget notes, Lena noticed a sizable withdrawal Evan had made from their joint savings account money she had added from her bakery's profits. The transaction was marked business development. When she asked about it weeks ago, Evan had said it was for gym equipment. Now she wasn't so sure. She followed the money trail and found an invoice in his email. Bridget's brother had been hired to do the branding and logo work for Evan's gym. A generous payment had already been sent. So that was it. They weren't just having an affair. They were using her. Evan was leveraging her success, her bakery income, her good standing in the town, all to fund his dream. And Bridget. She was playing the long game, pretending to be the supportive maid of honor while helping Evan line his pockets behind Lena's back. It was the perfect scam, until Lena found out. And once she knew, she couldn't unknow. But still, she smiled, she baked, she let them think they had won. Because what's more dangerous than a woman betrayed a woman with a plan? Lena didn't cancel the wedding. Instead, she turned it into a stage. The moment she realized what Evan and Bridget had done, how calculated and cruel it all was, she stopped being the heartbroken bride. She became something else entirely. Someone with purpose, with clarity, with a hunger not for vengeance, but for justice in the most poetic form possible. And justice, Lena decided, would be served at the altar. She knew how her town worked. Word spread fast in small places, but good stories, spread faster when they came with visuals. So Lena leaned in. She doubled down on the fairy tale fantasy. Every detail of the wedding was meticulously planned to draw attention, cameras, and eyes. She reached out to a local lifestyle blogger, one who had once interviewed her for a holiday cookie recipe. "Would you be interested?" she asked sweetly, in covering a wedding, a very special one. The sweetheart of Sweetwater finally getting married, high school love story, dream bakery backdrop, custom cake. It's going to be magical. The blogger said yes within the hour. Then came local news. A wedding segment was pitched, Love Stories of Texas, and Lena's name, with her bakery's popularity, was the perfect hook. She watched Evan closely as the media interest grew. He puffed up predictably like a rooster, loved the attention, started posting shirtless gym selfies with captions like, "Big days coming up, gotta look sharp." He was playing the groom role so well, it made her sick. But it also made her smirk. He had no idea what was coming. Bridget, on the other hand, looked uncomfortable. Lena noticed her twitchy eyes when photographers were mentioned. How her smile grew a bit tighter every time someone said, "We can't wait to see you walk down the aisle next to Lena." She was nervous. Good. Let it fester. Meanwhile, Lena worked in silence. She hired a discreet, tech-savvy teen, one of her employees' cousins, to help her organize the files. The photos, the screenshots, the messages, the financial records. Everything neatly organized into a folder named Forever After. She scheduled the email drop for 8 a.m. on the wedding day. Subject line: to whom it should concern. Recipient list: her family, his family, every mutual friend. Her bridal party, his groomsmen, the local news editor, and of course the lifestyle blogger. But she wasn't done. Lena also made some adjustments to her wedding cake. The top tier, decorated in delicate white roses, hid a hollow compartment. Inside, a flash drive with everything, just in case someone needed a physical copy. She called it her insurance tier. 3 days before the wedding, she sat with her mother sipping iced tea on the bakery patio, pretending everything was normal. Her mom looked radiant, glowing with pride. "I always knew you and Evan would make it," her mom said, patting her hand. Lena smiled. "Me too." That night, Evan texted her, "Bridget's helping me pick up suits tomorrow. You cool if we grab lunch after?" She replied, "Of course. Thank her for being such a good friend." When she hit send, she felt nothing. The day before the wedding, the town buzzed with excitement. Cars rolled in, hotels filled up. Her bakery sold out by noon. Strangers stopped her on the street just to wish her well. She wore a white sundress and smiled for every photo. That night, while Evan was at his bachelor party and Bridget claimed to be having a spa night, Lena finalized her masterpiece. She baked until midnight, each layer of the cake crafted with surgical precision. Then she stood alone in the bakery kitchen, staring at her reflection in the stainless steel fridge door. She looked calm, But inside her, a storm was about to break. The morning of the wedding dawned golden and still. A perfect Texas sunrise blanketed the town in a warm hue. The bakery was closed. Private event, the sign read, but the scent of sugar and vanilla still lingered in the air. Lena woke early, showered, did her own makeup with practiced hands, and wore the wedding dress she'd designed months ago. Ivory satin, off the shoulder, clean lines with a flowing skirt. Elegant, timeless. At 8:00 a.m., sharp, she pressed send. The email filled with undeniable proof of betrayal. Photos, messages, hotel receipts reached every intended inbox. She didn't need to read the replies. She didn't care what they might say. The truth was out. That was enough. She placed her phone face down and walked away. At the venue, everything looked like a dream. Soft floral arches, candlelit lanterns, rustic benches covered in white tulle. Guests began to arrive dressed in their finest. They smiled, exchanged stories, took selfies in front of the flower wall. Then slowly, phones began to vibrate. Notifications, new emails, attachments. Expressions shifted. Smiles faded. Conversations stalled. Guests began pulling each other aside, showing screens whispering. Some frowned in disbelief. Others looked directly at Evan's groomsman, who had gone pale. Bridget hadn't shown up yet. Evan did. He stood at the altar in a sharp navy suit, grinning like a man who thought the whole world adored him. But as the tension in the air thickened, he started to notice. Eyes on him. Murmurs he couldn't hear. Friends avoiding his gaze. He approached one of his groomsmen. "What's going on?" The groomsman simply handed him a phone. Evan's face drained of color as he scrolled. Meanwhile, Lena arrived in silence. She stepped from the classic white car that had been meant to deliver her to her fairy tale ending. The driver opened the door, and she emerged tall, composed, and glowing. Not with joy, but with something sharper. Final. She walked through the venue as if she owned it, passing stunned guests who stepped aside instinctively. Her train swept across the grass. Her bouquet, made of sugar roses from her own kitchen, stayed steady in her hands. She reached the altar. Evan opened his mouth to speak, but Lena held up a hand. "Don't." She turned to the officiant. "Before we begin, I'd like to say something." She turned to the guests. "I know many of you came today to witness love, and I thank you. But instead, I offer you truth. The kind of truth that demands to be seen even when it hurts." She stepped aside and motioned to the projector screen behind them. It lit up. The first slide showed her and Evan smiling, young in love. The next slide was a text exchange, then a hotel receipt, then a photo of Evan in her bakery shirtless, holding a mug sent to Bridget. The gasps began, small at first, then louder. Bridget, who had just arrived at the back, froze in the doorway. Her face turned white. She turned around and disappeared. Evan stammered, "Lena, please, this isn't—" She didn't let him finish. She faced the crowd. "This man," she said calmly, "stood beside me, promising forever while building his future with someone else. Using my love, my money, and my trust to fund his lies." She looked at Evan one last time. "There will be no wedding today." The officiant stepped back. The crowd remained silent, stunned. No one moved. Lena took a deep breath. "But there will be cake." She turned and walked away from the altar. Some guests clapped. Others stood in stunned silence. Her family stood tall, proud. Her father nodded slowly as she passed. Back at the reception tent, the food had already been set out. The cake stood tall in the center, flawless, grand, and bittersweet. Lena walked past it without a glance. By late afternoon, word had spread beyond the venue. People from town who hadn't attended started arriving just to see her, to hug her, to thank her. Someone asked for an interview. She said yes. Within a day, the bakery's social media was flooded with messages of support. Online orders tripled. People wanted her recipes, her strength, her story. By the end of the week, a local producer offered her a segment on a reality cooking show. She would teach others how to bake, and maybe how to rise after heartbreak. Evan left town within a month. His gym never opened. Bridget vanished from social circles. Rumors said she moved in with a cousin in Dallas. Lena, she kept baking. And on the top shelf of her freezer, in a carefully sealed box, she kept a slice of that wedding cake. Not as a symbol of pain, but as proof of what she'd overcome. Not every love story ends at the altar. Some end with a woman walking away, head high, truth blazing behind her, and a future entirely her own. Lena didn't plan to become a symbol. She only wanted closure. But the fallout from her very public takedown echoed louder than she expected. Within days, the video someone took of her, walking away from the altar, stoic, in her wedding dress, guests gasping behind her, went viral after being uploaded anonymously. Titled simply, "The Bride Who Said Nope," it struck a nerve. People weren't just watching, they were rallying. Messages poured in from women and men alike. Stories of betrayal, quiet strength, broken engagements, and last-minute truths. Lena became a quiet hero to many, not for screaming, not for revenge, but for choosing dignity, clarity, and the power of walking away. Still, not everything was calm behind the scenes. Evan tried calling. He left voicemails, rambling, pathetic ones. At first he was apologetic, then defensive, then angry. "You humiliated me, Lena. In front of everyone. You didn't have to make a scene." She never answered. Bridget texted once. A single line, "You always thought you were better than me." Blocked. Then came the knock on the bakery door one night, 3 days after the wedding. Lena was finishing a late order when she saw Evan outside pacing in the moonlight like a caged animal. She didn't flinch. She opened the door but didn't step aside. "You need to leave, Lena. Please. I just need to talk." "You lost that right." He laughed bitterly. "So you're a hero now. Some kind of small-town Joan of Arc." She stared at him. "I never wanted attention. I wanted a life with someone honest. And you killed that." He stepped closer. "I lost everything because of you." "No," she said sharply. "You lost everything because of you." And she closed the door. The next morning, she had the locks changed. She installed cameras, not because she was scared, but because she refused to be naive again. Her life didn't just return to normal, it expanded. Her wedding cake design went viral too. People requested it for divorce parties, freedom celebrations, even birthdays. Lena started posting short baking videos, just quiet, soothing clips with music, and no speaking. But people watched. Her following grew. One video captioned, "Frosting over betrayal," hit 3 million views in a week. Producers from a major streaming platform reached out. "Would you be open to a baking competition series?" the woman asked on Zoom. But with a twist, every contestant has been through heartbreak. The baking is the therapy. Lena blinked, laughed, then nodded. Why not? She filmed a pilot. It was raw, heartfelt, and surprisingly funny. The platform greenlit the series in 2 months. It was called Whisked Away and featured stories of recovery, resilience, and of course, stunning desserts. Meanwhile, Evan tried to pick up the pieces, but small towns don't forget easily. His gym lease was canceled when the landlord saw the video. Sponsors pulled out. Friends distanced themselves. Not because Lena asked them to, but because they couldn't ignore what they saw with their own eyes. Bridget moved to Dallas. She tried launching a YouTube channel, Healing After Betrayal. But commenters weren't forgiving. The truth had followed her too. Karma didn't come with thunder and lightning. It came with quiet doors closing, with eyes looking away, with invitations that never arrived. Lena, on the other hand, found peace in unexpected places. She started a small scholarship fund for young women pursuing culinary arts, named it after her grandmother, who taught her how to knead dough by hand and how to never settle for half-truths. She reconnected with old friends, traveled for the first time in years. Paris, Kyoto, Amalfi. She baked in every place she visited, learning local recipes and traditions. And love, she didn't chase it. But one evening, while filming season 2 of Whisked Away, a guest judge arrived, Diego Ramirez, a pastry chef from Mexico City. Talented, soft-spoken, with a laugh like summer thunder, and hands that shaped sugar like magic. They spoke over almond tarts and espresso that night, then again and again. Months later, when someone asked her if she believed in love again, Lena smiled. "I believe in trust," she said. "And if love wants to come along for the ride, it can lace up and earn its place." She no longer measured time by what she lost, but by what she learned and what she built. And in a quiet corner of her kitchen, under warm cafe lights, she kept one framed photo, not of her wedding day, but of the moment she walked away from it, a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not say I do. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Lena stood in her bakery, alone, sipping a cup of coffee, as sunlight spilled across the countertops. The shop wasn't open yet, but the ovens were already warm. The scent of cinnamon and browned butter drifted through the air. Outside, a line had started to form, locals and tourists alike, some clutching cookbooks she'd signed, others just hoping to see her in person. But inside, Lena took her time. She turned on the radio. A jazz track played low in the background. Then she reached for the wedding cake box in her freezer. Carefully, she opened the lid. The slice had been vacuum sealed and frozen perfectly. A relic from the day she rewrote her future. She didn't keep it out of nostalgia. She didn't keep it out of pain. She kept it because it reminded her who she became the moment she chose herself. She looked at it for a moment, smiled, then closed the box again and returned it to the freezer. Not today. Today was about new recipes, new memories, and maybe, just maybe, new beginnings. At 8:00 a.m., she unlocked the front door. The bell above chimed. A little girl was first in line with her mother. She pointed at the glass display and whispered, "Mommy, that's the cake from the brave lady's story." Lena leaned over the counter. "Want to try a new one I just made this morning?" The girl nodded, eyes wide. Lena handed her a small sugar cookie, shaped like a phoenix, delicate golden, rising in flight. The girl took a bite and beamed. And Lena? She just laughed, softly, heartful. Because rising wasn't about revenge. It was about becoming more than what tried to break you. And she had, beautifully, completely, sweetly.